Hey, thank you so much for subscribing and for tuning in to the very first episode of a series of medical article discussions that I will be talking about. Today we're going to be talking about a very personal article, and it's about COVID-19, and because it's still ongoing, a lot of people have been affected by this, and that's the reason why I say it might be a bit personal for some. This article was written by Dr. J.D. Samuels of Weill Cornell Medical College, and the title is called Discussion of Obesity and Severe COVID-19 Disease, a Strong Correlation. So let's start with an overview of this article. Like I said, it was very recently published actually by Dr. J.D. Samuels of Weill Cornell College of Medicine. And in it, he really discusses his experiences as a frontline worker during the COVID pandemic. The main body really discusses his experience dealing with patients that have a lot of comorbidities, such as obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and the relationship he sees with COVID fatality rates. So let's go to a breakdown of the article. In this slide, I have summarized some key points. So in paragraph 1, he opens the article with his credentials, and he talks about why he was picked as a COVID frontline worker. He's an airways expert, and he says that upon inspection, I noted that most of my patients were male, over 60, and had medical comorbidities and obesity. At that point, he really goes in depth about the correlation he sees with obesity mainly as a huge factor, and other comorbidities, like I said before, obesity, hypertension, diabetes, etc. He also states at the end of the first paragraph that all of them overwhelmingly possess the obstructive sleep apnea phenotype. In paragraph 2, he discusses that his previous experience with patients with obesity class 3 and full expression of the obstructive sleep apnea phenotype have a high risk of cardiovascular disease, obtain less benefit from non-invasive pressure ventilation, and require medical management of comorbidities. He later says that they are all at a high risk of all-cause cardiovascular and cancer mortality, and often are present with deconditioned pro-inflammatory profile. The CDC, he later states, the CDC classes patients with obesity at high risk of flu and COVID-19 complications. Both of these results are shown in the 2019 influenza A H1N1 infection. These patients are at a high risk of infection, particularly respiratory infection, which is not surprising, and influenza-like symptoms despite vaccination. We go to a continuation of paragraph 2, and he later cites the CDC once more, saying that 48.3% of hospitalized or deceased patients were obese. He later says that it is important for all hospitals to gather BMI information for each admission in order to develop a clear correlation between obesity and COVID infection and death rates, because although he sees some sort of correlation, they don't have enough data, and they don't have enough, they didn't cast a wide enough net yet in order to confirm that. He then quotes, I quote him, he says, "Only with large databases can the relative frequencies of hypertension, diabetes, and obesity be separated out," because at this point they don't know if it's just coincidental or if these comorbidities actually do have a connection with COVID infection and death rates. So patients exhibiting high obesity are represented in the severe COVID disease population. In order to determine relationship of obesity on COVID infection, national or international large-scale studies are needed. And the most frequent comorbidities represented in COVID cases are the 3 main ones, and that is hypertension, obesity, and diabetes. So he concludes it with saying that we now need to harmonize these results, and we really need to conduct more research in order to put them together into a large database from which conclusions may be drawn. So what does this mean? The entire article really means that of the cases presented in COVID patients, common comorbidities such as hypertension, diabetes, and obesity seems to have a negative correlation with the health and recovery of COVID patients. Although he has said that, he also mentions that there is no actual evidence to back up his theory, essentially. And he urges everyone that in order for us to have answers on how these very common diseases affect COVID, we need to conduct large-scale research on an international or national level in order for us to really get the answers that we need. So that is the end of the very first episode, and thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe, and you guys are awesome.